Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear students. Today, I have the privilege of introducing our first speaker of the day after the keynote, Mr. Kalyan Kumar Banerjee, a co-founder of Klorofeel Foundation and Klorofeel Education Association, focused on delivering a joyful, meaningful education in underserved areas. Mr. Kalyan graduated in electrical engineering from IIT Delhi and has mastered in computer science from IIT Kanpur. He is also one of the 10 co-founders at Mindtree, and Mindtree has focused on organization learning and conceived the knowledge management, culture, and competency and leadership development initiatives. Kalyan also works with social enterprises committed to protecting livelihood. He is chairman of Harsha Trust, who have impacted lives of 1 lakh farmers in South Odisha. Mr. Kalyan Banerjee mentors young organizations like Read Benefit, Walnut, and Rise High Public School, experimenting with teaching learning methods that are fun, affordable, and effective. So it is a great pleasure to have Mr. Kalyan Kumar Banerjee, and over to you, sir.
I thank Krupanidhi Group, and I thank all the faculty and students for this opportunity, and for getting together and discussing the lessons from the pandemic. Before I come to my experiences during the pandemic, let me begin with some of the big spiritual lessons that I have got, and that probably most people in society have got. The first lesson is that the world is interconnected and all of us are interdependent. The pandemic has impacted everybody, the rich and the poor alone. Rich and the poor, all of them together have been impacted. In fact, in many cases, the rich people and the rich countries have been impacted more. Even as India still may not have reached its peak problems in the pandemic, now we know that America is ahead of us. And prior to India, you had some of the most developed countries in Europe that were impacted. So that's a lesson in interdependence, that we are not alone. No matter how powerful we are, we depend on other people, and together we can live in this world. Now that's one of my big lessons that we have. The second is an exercise in humility. Now, no matter how big you are, this small virus can bring you down. And that is something that we need to understand. As we do well and climb up the ladder in life, very often we forget, we think that, we are not vulnerable, people cannot attack us, we are bigger than a whole lot of other people. But, this small virus can bring anybody down. So these are some important lessons that we need to learn, and for people like us who are speaking in this conference, probably we have only a few years to go, but most of you who are listening, you have 50, 60, 70 years to go, and these are lessons of humility, lessons of interdependence that we need to carry with us right through our lives, even as we do well and keep doing better in life. I will begin with some of my experiences. The last 1 year, I have been particularly busy building a school at a place called Brahmapur in Odisha. Brahmapur roughly is midway between Bhubaneswar and Vizag on the east coast of India. At the time the lockdown started in the second half of March, our construction of the school was almost complete. Now somehow, we anticipated that a lockdown will come, and the Saturday before the lockdown came, the next week, we had a meeting of all stakeholders, and we said that, there were 200 labor force in our campus who are doing the construction. Number one, we must take care of them. Number two, we must assure them that they are safe with us. They must not go away. In any case, they cannot go away. Number three, we must ensure that they continue once the lockdown is over. Somehow we anticipated moment the lockdown is called off. At that time, we thought it is for 2-3 weeks, maybe a month. We thought that the moment the lockdown is over, they will go away. So we had this plan. Now we anticipated, right? We also anticipated that construction will be stopped. Unfortunately, construction was stopped. So our labor force was there inside. They could have worked, but they could not because the rules did not allow. And interestingly, the moment, despite whatever we tried, the moment the travel restrictions were eased, sometime in end of April, early May, the labor force went back home. This is something that we anticipated, and yet we could not do anything about it. Now, unlike many other parts in the country, all of you have read about the labor force migration across states and state there. We did take care of the labor force, still they went away. So we need to understand that there's a collective thinking that happens in society. So we are part of the whole. And if a certain set of people are doing something together, now it doesn't matter if you are trying to be an island. Now, that again is part of the interdependence story. Now, being part of it, being part of the collective whole, being interdependent, sometimes you have you get a positive results, sometimes you get negative results. In this specific case, we get negative results. But we cannot complain about it. What's the option that we have when we believe that because of the collective whole we are getting negative results? The opportunity and the responsibility is on us to build the collective whole, to upgrade it, to put it up. Now, in 1990, the first time when for a professional reason I went to United States, India was not a brand name. People did not know much about India. In fact, the average American could not have located India on the world map. They knew Singapore, they knew Japan, but they did not know India. Now, yes, it does hurt your pride at that time, but you know, a lot of change happened in the industry in the 90s. And by 2004, John Kerry, the US Democratic presidential candidate, he lost, but he said, I want all USA to be like Bangalore. So now you see in 14 years, okay, all USA did not become like Bangalore, and that's a different point. And he made an election speech. But the point is Bangalore and India had become a brand in just 14 years time. And since then, since the turn of the century, we have been getting the advantages of India as a software brand. So this is one example again, where we worked hard as a country, we worked hard as a collective whole, and now we are reaping the dividends of being the collective whole, of an upgraded collective that we have. So while we do well in our lives, while we do well in our companies, we have a responsibility to improve the world around us, the community around us, the society around us. We will reap the benefits of that. Now, sometimes if people like me, we do it at this stage of our lives, maybe my children, my grandchildren will benefit. Now, that is a responsibility also that we need to carry with ourselves. The next point that I want to make is, I talked about the migration. Yes, the labor force did run away. In our case, in many cases, they were forced to go. They were forced to go because their employers did not take care of them. Now, the sad reality is, you see here, I'm not going into the morals of it. I'm not going into the fairness of it, because that brings up a larger social debate. I'm just talking about the business aspects of it. Now, the people who refused to take care of their labor force, the employers, within 6 weeks time, 4 to 6 weeks time, they were regretting that their labor force were not there with them. Now, this shows how short a window of thinking that they have. They could not think 4 months ahead. Now, I can tell you, now taking care of their food does not take more than 100 rupees a day. Their wages, depending on who is giving the wages, is not more than 200, 300, 400, 500 rupees a day. Now, and you add that up, so it comes to between 3,000 rupees to 10,000 rupees a month. The employer wanted to save 3,000 to 10,000 rupees max per employee, and after that he has been suffering from then. So this shows for very poor thinking, very myopic thinking that the employers had at that point in time. Now, what I would advise you that when you think and think ahead, don't think of the next transaction. Think of not just what will happen 1 month later, but 1 year later, 10 years later, 20 years later. Things that you do now will impact you many, many years later. And I will come to more of that. Now, while this was happening and the labor force were coming back to different states, Odisha, I was at that time in Odisha, but Odisha, Bihar, Jharkhand, Bengal, these were states that had an influx of labor force coming. And a lot of social enterprises were then predicting that, look, this labor force will never go back. And that was a big number. They will never go back. And trust has been broken. They don't have respect for their employers. They are so angry, they will never go back. And so a lot of plans were made and proposals were presented to government. What will happen if they don't go back? And how can we create opportunities for them? So one small part I want to tell is, so look, people were looking for opportunities during the pandemic and opportunities after the pandemic, that what can be done. But I believed then that no labor force will go back. And that's the thing that is happening. Now, change does not happen in a day, because our villages, our rural areas don't have opportunities for the labor force. So they may not have great respect now for their employers, but they don't have a choice but to go back, and hence they will go back. But what has happened is trust has been destroyed, and that won't be recovered in a generation. Probably their children will forget if the current employers post-pandemic, they try hard. And I will give you an example. You may think that, okay, you don't care so much about it. It does not touch us. It does not touch most of us. But in the 2001-2002 recession, the IT industry laid off lots of people. 2008-9 again, they did lay off a lot of people. And trust was broken. Media did not write much about it, but those who lost their jobs, they know they lost their jobs, irrespective of whether it was written in the media or not. Trust was broken, and that trust has still not been restored. As a result, what do you have? The average software engineer works in the industry 19 months at a time. Every 19 months, this boy or girl or young man or woman shifts her job. And that's unfortunate for the industry. And because we take some knee-jerk reaction, because we take thoughtlessly decisions that could haunt us later, we don't think of the consequences. Trust gets lost, and we lose as a collective whole. We lose as a society. We lose as a community. We lose as a nation. Now, what can you do about it? When you take your decisions, please think of what will happen 10 years later, what will happen 20 years later. Now, you know what, and this is the discussion not just during pandemic or post-pandemic, I have been having with young people for the last 20 years, that honesty pays, fairness pays, trust pays, respect pays. Now, these are important virtues to have. Now, people will tell me that, but people are not honest. Now, I can't be honest in this unfair world. I can't be fair in this unfair world. Now, I would lose out. But let me tell you that that's all the more reason, because if other people are not honest and around you, if other people are not fair around you, now if you are fair and honest, you have an USP. That is your USP. People will respect you for that. You will attract partners and employees and customers whom other people cannot attract, because you have built the reputation. So when you are 20, you become known through your actions, not through speeches, but through your actions, that you are a fair person, you are an honest person, you are an ethical person, that you respect others, you are open to listening to others. By the time you are 40, you will have an amazing advantage. And this I can tell you from experience. Now, if people trust you, people respect you, people see you as ethical, that's an advantage that is going to last you for a lifetime. And other people, which you have built over 20 years, other people cannot build it in a hurry. They cannot build it by creating an ethical statement in their corporate booklet. So that's a lesson again that I will want you to carry. Now, some lessons that have been lost somehow in the education sector, we have felt that education happens within the bounds of the textbook and the syllabus. And so if classroom is closed, let us go to online and screen. And this I'm talking not so much about college, where right now I don't have direct experience, but definitely in terms of primary school, I don't think it made sense, or it still makes sense. That a class 4, class 5 child stays glued to the screen 4, 5, 6 hours a day. And there's a whole lot that the child could have done. For example, in our school, which where we are in our first academic year, we told the child to spend time in the kitchen. And they learned a whole lot about the kitchen, not just on what is cooked, but on the spices, where the spices come from. They learned on the pots and pans. They learned on boiling and cooking and grilling and different methods of cooking, and you know how much time it takes for each. They learned that spices will be counted in grams, and you know, rice or cereals will be counted in kilograms. And so there is so much of mathematics and history and geography and science they could learn from this. Kitchen is not the only thing they learned. They did a water audit. They learned where water is wasted and why water is wasted. They learned about reverse osmosis and the impact of that. They learned where water comes from. These are questions that they asked class 5, class 4 students. Method of education. They bonded with their parents who could not spend time otherwise. Now they could spend time with the children. There could be debates. They bonded with their grandparents. They learned how life for grandparents was like. For today's class 4 child, it was interesting that their life existed before the internet. Life existed before the telephone. So they learned about all that, and all that is also education. And we are missing that opportunity by focusing on screen all the time. Now, who enjoys the screen? Now, actually, you know, to the credit of Karnataka government, you know, they listened to the Nimhan's report, and Karnataka education minister, health minister, they said that online should not be done. But then schools did not listen, and they squandered this opportunity. Now, we need to understand here, what's the larger lesson? We need to understand what is the purpose. The purpose is that child should learn something which will be useful 10, 20, 30, 40 years later. Purpose is not to stay glued to the classroom, the textbooks, and finish the chapters. The chapters that we read now, even maybe in your engineering, what you are reading now, they may not be useful 5 years later. They may not be useful 10 years later. But problem solving will be useful. Collaboration will be useful. Many other students during this period, they volunteered and solved problems. RIP Benefit, an organization that I work with, they work with youth volunteers to solve problems of society. And this is the time youth volunteers, both from school and college, they came forward and worked at the problems of society. What were the problems at this time? Again, migrant labor. They need food, they need shelter. How can we help them? There are donors willing to give money. How can we reach the donor money to the people who need them? Now, these were work that actually people could do. The next point, directly what you want to know, you know, is directly related to industry. And now what you could be doing now, what you could do later. Now, I'll just speak on one news item which all of you interested in a software career must have read. TCS made the claim that in 5 years from now, only 25% of their employees will be working out of offices. What does this mean? 75% will be working from home. Now, what does this mean for you? Probably you will be working from home. Now, this means you are on your own. Now, many of today's third year, final year students, they believe that, you know, I will join a job and the company will train me, and then the company seniors will tell me how to do the job. Now, that luxury will be gone. That insurance will be gone. You know, you have to learn the tricks of the trade. If it's software, it is programming on your own, and you have to be on your own. Now this is something that you need to learn and work hard. And during the apprenticeship, during the pandemic, while things are still closed, you have choices of doing apprenticeship. You have choices of doing internship. Go join a company. Now companies want to save costs. You go and tell them, I will work for you for free. Maybe a TCS will not give you a job like that in internship, but smaller companies will give you. They want to save costs. They will give you opportunity to work. And don't think that whether I'll get a stipend. You know, you work and you learn at their expense. And you have a better, not just you have a better CV, but you have better learning by actually working with the industry. So these are opportunities you can have now rather than sit quiet at your home. It also means, a whole lot of technology will have going out. We don't know how long this care will be there, but essentially, what this means is trend, we will use a lot more of technology. Now, for all those of you who aspire to a career in technology, this is good news. So you have to think what kind of solutions you can have. Okay, now this is not a idea session, but I'll just give you an idea of where to think. All of you know about Arogya Setu. Now, many of you may have used it. I use it, but I know that it is not much use. It is not much use because most people are not using it. Arogya Setu will be useful only if most people will be using it. So, for example, if you are designing a solution, you have an opportunity here of, see, the Arogya Setu technology is not complex, but the thinking is interesting. That thinking has to go how to force people, how to push people, how to persuade people to use it. And today, we have failed in persuading people to use it. On the other hand, now if you are looking for answers how to do it, WhatsApp or Facebook, they have found the answers. They know. We go and voluntarily use Facebook and WhatsApp, and Facebook collect, or Google, they collect our information, or Amazon, they collect our information, and they know all about us. And based on that, they are basing their business. Now, so you have to think, have an Arogya Setu or whatever else, where people will come to me. I don't have to force people to come to me. They will have an interest in coming to me. So these are kind of opportunity for those who may be feeling, why this pandemic and why I have to go through this. What is the purpose of life? A lot of thinking like this comes. Now, I would like to say that I learnt a lot 20 years back from a book called Adversary Quotient from Stoltz, where he gave 4 attributes during adversity. Those are called CORE, C-O-R-E, control, ownership, reach, and endurance. Control is, are you in control of yourself? Now, this means that don't think of how will India tackle the problem. If you think of that problem, you cannot be in control. Now, but you can be in control of your own life. And to what extent can I, understand my problem? To what extent I can narrowly define my problem, and can I be in control of that problem? Now, that's what control means. What is ownership? Ownership means, and the previous speaker touched upon that, ownership means I don't go and blame others. Oh, government did not do this. My college did not do this. My employer did not do this. Ownership is I take ownership of my problem. I am responsible for fixing my problem. I may not be responsible for bringing in the coronavirus. That doesn't matter. But I am responsible for fixing my life. So that is ownership. The next attribute is reach. What is reach? That yes, one aspect of my life is sad at this moment. Maybe the professional aspect of my life is sad, but I will not allow this to make other aspects of my life sad. So for example, this is an opportunity to bond with family. Can I do that? I'm taking a common example. There are many or more opportunities that we can have. Okay, so I will not make all aspects of my life sad. For those of you who understand software, now people who write good software programs, if there is a bug in one module, it should not bring down the other module. If you have a bug in one program, it should not bring down the other program. Okay, so that's what reach means. How can you segment the problem and make the problem limited? The last one is endurance. Now, we don't know how long this problem will last. Okay, so we have to, endurance is about, this is for the long term, and I am there. I have to see that what opportunities I can make out of it right now. And number 2, after the pandemic is over, am I prepared? What is the world that could be there after the pandemic? What will people need? And then am I preparing for it? There are people today who are whiling away their time on Facebook and WhatsApp. Everybody today is a doctor and is giving advice on, on a new, how to be immune and when the vaccine will come and how to avoid things. Now, and that is, in my view, complete wastage of time, because if you see in February, people were writing something, in March they were writing something else, in April they were writing something else and predicting something else, and now in August people are writing something else. If you didn't read anything the last 6 months, you have not lost much. Instead, focus on, it's about control and ownership. You focus on what you can do for your life. Unless you are in the vaccine business, then of course you should be thinking vaccine. If you are not in the vaccine business, you think about your life, you think about what you can do. Other people will solve the vaccine problem. Don't worry about it. When the future is unknown, there's a sense of fear that, it is not written in the textbooks, and you have to take some risks and you have to do things. Now, if you think that you don't know, yes, you don't know. Let me assure you, nobody knows, and none of us know. And the proof of that is, again, you read the newspapers or you need WhatsApp, whichever you read, of February and March, what people were telling, and you read now in August what people are telling, and you will read in November what people will tell. And that's proof that other people don't know. Now, if you can take comfort of that, from that yes, nobody knows, then you should be willing to try. You should be willing to take your risks. And see, if you take your risks, you may fail, and that's okay. If you don't do anything, you will fail anyway. And that's an abiding lesson in adversity times, that you need to understand that if you don't do anything, you will not gain anything. So you have to go. You are as good as the best. You have to go and you have to try. And so I will end my I'll end my talk with to come back to the spiritual lessons. People are important. You have to trust others. You have to help others. You have to be fair to others. You have to think of the long window. 10 years, 20 years later, you have to build relationships like that. Lessons don't get over in a day or two or in a month or two. And keep building skills that will be useful for you. Don't wait for somebody else to come and give you a job. That will not happen, because people will be reducing workforce the next few months or the next couple of years. So what I am learning, how it will equip me to set up my own company, how I will earn my own livelihood. You have to think of that, and if possible, give livelihood to 10 other people and be fair to them. So with this, I would close, and I will welcome questions. Thank you.
Well, that was such an inspirational talk. I'm sure this has edified our students and all the listeners today. Mr. Banerjee, you touched upon how interdependent we are and how a small virus has shattered the world, and how, in spite of all such things, whether it is a poor or rich, it has not made any difference in lives. The only lesson that we got to take away is be kind, be humble, care more for others. And as it is rightly said, that a team is as good as its leader, and you have been an epitome of leadership in your entrepreneurial journey. So we have some questions coming up your way, and I would request you to answer them. I know the last wording or the last bit of your talk where you said that opportunities are reducing would have really scared us, scared the students who are listening. I would just want you to probably make it a little more positive and give life to that question and address upon what skill sets do you think that would help them to acquire, to be able to employ themselves. Yeah, so this will be the first question, and then we'll take a couple of more.
Yeah, now I'd like to first put that in context on opportunities reducing. In 2012, I shifted from my industry career. I was in the industry for 26 years, and 2012 I shifted to education, and I joined as Pro Vice Chancellor in some university. Now that time I saw an analyst report which said that 8 out of 10 engineers don't find a job. That was the figure in 2012. So what it meant was, and I remember the figure of that time, that there were some 3 lakh engineers seeking, 3 lakh engineers who found jobs that year, 2012, of which 2.1 lakh were in the IT, exact breakup I don't know, 2.1 lakh, and around 75,000 were in all the other industries taken together. Okay, now so the situation was bleak right then. So it's not that pandemic is the reason. Okay, the fact is that, and since then I have followed every year for the next 4 or 5 years, and it did not improve. What improved was the denominator. Less people were going into engineering, so maybe not 8 on 10 now, 6 on 10 will be unemployed. Now, what this means for you is, do not depend on a big company to come and give you a job. You have to, what skills? The first skill I would say is that you should be good in at least one programming language. See, I'm talking here for software because I won't be able to tell about mechanical or chemical engineering. Now, the advantage in software is that, you don't need a high capital to set up your own business. Okay, so you should be good in at least one programming language now. And the second is, be interested in certain kind of problems and try to solve those problems. So whatever those problems could be, they could be database related, they could be algorithms, AI algorithms, they could be something else. That's your choice. But finally, you should be able to write code on your own. Unfortunately, in college, people get the habit of copy pasting code. That does not work in the real world. Okay, so that's one thing. It's a simple, easy thing. Now on that also, people have asked me that, my friend, he doesn't know programming and he got a good job. Okay, that is his problem. Now, I have interviewed fresh engineers for around 20 years, interviewed lots of people. I can tell you very few of them, they know programming. They know how to write code on their own. Maybe 5%, max to be liberal, 10% of the engineers, they know how to write code. So if you can write code on your own, if you can write a 500-line program that works, you are among the top 5,000 in the country who are seeking jobs. You will find a good thing for yourself.
Thank you so much, and that was really, would have given certain confidence to the students on what they need to really worry about. One thing that I understand is there won't be scarcity of job opportunities, but yes, there would be demand for the competent people, and the competition is going to get tougher. So it's important for the students to pick up the right skills to be able to make their way into the jobs or the job market. Yeah, we'll take up another question, Mr. Banerjee. So what kind of opportunities are there for the young people, the youth who are passing out or graduating this year? Just not the technical, with the technical reference. For management students, we have undergrad students, or even if the 12th grade student, if he has to prepare for future. So what are the opportunities that you would see that, these are going to have future? And as we all know that currently whatever is being taught or learnt is going to be obsolete, and we need to prepare for future. So what is that, you would want to highlight on that the students need to focus for the upcoming years?
Yeah, first I should begin with the disclaimer that on what is my limitation. My limitation is that I have been in the IT industry, and last 8 years I have been out of industry. I have been in education, and with this limitation, I will try and answer the question. I would want you to think of, hopefully many of you have seen the Attenborough film on Gandhi. Now, when Gandhi came back to India from South Africa, the first thing he did was a railway journey of India. And so he formed his own assessment of India. And he did not depend on what other people were talking about India, what the media wrote on India. He made his own assessment of India. I would want you to go and make your own assessment of the problems of the country. Now, if you rely on that only by reading, then you are reading what other people are also reading. So there is a small part of the market for which everybody is competing, and that's a rat race that you may want to avoid. Then the chances are 2 on 10 that you will succeed in finding a livelihood for yourself. On the other hand, most of India is underserved. Go to villages, go to different districts and district headquarters, and you will see that their problem is very different. You will be surprised that the people who grow the vegetables or fruits, they pay a very high price for those. Now, can you find again, I don't want to go into detail on that. Can you find a solution for them? Okay, but on the other hand, you want to go with existing solutions, chances are 2 in 10 that you will succeed. You go to unaddressed spaces and chances are 10 on 10 that you will succeed because there is no competition out there. On the other hand, it's not a great brand to say, okay, from Bangalore or from Hyderabad or from Bombay, I am going to a village out there and I am trying to serve people. But you will have a committed livelihood. And I'm not suggesting something that I don't do myself. Today I am in education, but I am focusing on the unaddressed segments where nobody is going. I'm not focusing on IITs. A lot of people are focused on IITs and the top institutes, IIMs. They can be better, how they can be in the top 50 ranks in the world. Yes, that's also very important. But I'm going to villages and schools where nobody is there. And there also you need good teachers. How can we have good teachers there? And I can tell you a good teacher is very much in demand. They are scarce. If you are interested in academics, try and be a good teacher. Good teachers are not there. Don't try to be a good teacher in the top 10 school in Bangalore. That's a big competition. And you have to fight hard with lots of people. You go to a district town, you go to a village, good teachers don't exist there. I'm just giving you one example, but you don't have to do that. But education and healthcare are the next big problems in the country, and you can use a techie solution for that. You can say, I was trained in technology. You can use techie solutions to bring education and healthcare to the last mile. The techie solutions of today do not exist. Okay, they serve Bangalore. Now in Bangalore, the Bangalore child upper middle class has a tablet, has internet access. I have internet access, hence I am talking to you. Hopefully this session has gone on uninterrupted. When I am talking to my children in Odisha, the students, there are several interruptions during this half an hour. How can we be innovative and solve those problems? Okay, now, and I'd be willing to further discuss with you if you want to discuss livelihoods at a later point in time.
Well, thank you so much for those inspiring and motivating words towards the end. So thank you. It was real pleasure having you and listening to you, Mr. Banerjee. I'm sure students had a great takeaway from your talk, and we would love to connect with you back quite often from the Institute. Thank you so much for joining us.